Okay, guys, so we are going to begin. Welcome to Charlotte Prep's e-learning science class for 6th grade. I'm glad that you can all make it. I missed you guys, and I hope you're staying healthy and not going too crazy being in the house, right? I know that's a challenge. So I wanted to show you some things that we're going to do today, okay? So the first thing that I'm going to do is I can share my screen with you. And so before we do that, I wanted to go over something. Rule-wise, etiquette-wise, when we do the Zoom meetings, we'll get together 10 minutes before the meeting starts, and you guys can all talk to each other and everything. Don't do anything inappropriate. Don't do anything that you wouldn't get into trouble for at school. So it's a time for you guys to talk and start meeting. And then I'll ask you to mute yourself, right? So if you're just coming on, make sure you mute yourself so that I'm the only one who can talk, okay? Otherwise, it gets kind of confusing. So at the meetings, mute yourselves. Use only your name and your picture, right? Don't use some other picture up there, like some of you had to begin with, so that I'll need to do attendance and stuff from here, and so I'll know who's here by seeing your names in the pictures. And a lot of you are just coming on, so make sure you mute yourself by going over your picture with the cursor and clicking mute, okay? Otherwise, we get lots of other noises from people rustling around. There you go, I've muted you. If you have a question, I'm not gonna always just stop and answer everybody's questions, but if you have a question, you can ask a question by raising your hand. And you can raise your hand by looking at the participants at the left, and if you go over there, you can raise your hand and a little blue hand will come up, okay? Next thing, you guys are noticing that you can all chat, okay? So I don't really want you to be chatting while I'm talking about all the other stuff, right? Like Alex, I could see you chatting, and Daniel, Hannah, I know that you're just saying hi, but I certainly want you to pay attention to me, and we don't want anything inappropriate, right? So if we're gonna keep chatting, then I'll turn that feature off, or we'll find a way to manage it, okay? So today, now that we know about the etiquette for Zoom, then the next thing that I wanted to show you is, I'm going to share my screen with you. So one of the features of this is that I can share my screen with you. So let's go to here. Okay, so look at this is what your RenWeb or your fax looks like, and I think this is Kingston's that you should probably mute yourself so that I'm the only one talking. So all the lesson plans are in here. I'm sure you guys are aware of that already. Hopefully you all know that. But one thing that you might have trouble finding are the documents. Some of you have said that you have trouble finding documents. So after my lesson plan, at the bottom, there's a supplemental document down here, okay? And this is the PowerPoint that we're gonna see today. If you wanna follow along with it, you can. If not, you know where to find it. I'm gonna try to put all the PowerPoints and documents on RenWeb or fax, same thing, or in your shared folder, in both places, so that you have them in a number of places to find them. Some of you, you can also go to this to find your textbook and your lab book and everything. And like I said, I'm going to try to put as many things as I can on fax and your shared folder, so you don't need to go here. But if you do, then you have this document here that has the 6th grade username and password, Hendrix 2, CA Delta 2. And all you would have to do to sign in is go and put these in. Go back, Hendrix 2, CA Delta 2. Most importantly, don't do teacher login, do student login, and then you log in. Whoops. Sorry, it got rid of my username and password when I switched over to. There we go. So there's your Earth Science class. Click on it, and then you can get to your textbook if you don't have it. You can get to your lab book. These are the pages for the lab book. These are skill sheets if we do worksheets, and there's other things on here. So you should all be able to do this. It's fairly simple. But like I said, I'll try to keep everything on either fax or I will keep it on your Google Shared Drive. So here's our lesson plan for today. We're going to learn about water resources. In the beginning of the chapter, we learned about soil resources. If you don't make this meeting, you want to watch it later, I'll put a link to the recorded video here. I'm sorry, I'll put it right here. And the lesson plan tells you everything you need to do and everything you need to know. So go back to the PowerPoint. Okay. So this is the PowerPoint. If for some reason you can't get to this, like it doesn't show up on your screen, then you can just follow along as we go. So chapter 15, we've already done soil, and now we're on to water resources. So water is really important to all of us. It's important to all living things because the earth is 90% water. Your body is like 60% water. And so everything in the world, every living thing depends on water. And we don't really think of it as a resource. We just think it's always there and it's unlimited. But it is a really important resource for us to stay alive. So we take it for granted sometimes until you're thirsty, right? And then you don't take it for granted. So water can be pure. That means it could be H2O and nothing else. But most of the time it has things dissolved in it. Like it can have minerals dissolved in it. Like if you buy a bottled water and it's from a spring, it probably has minerals that people drink because it has all the stuff in there. Whoever's not muted should mute themselves, please. So we don't hear all that rustling around. Okay. So water can have all different kinds of things dissolved in it. Minerals, like we said, which are bottled water in the water that you drink. And sometimes it can have pollutants in it, which affect the quality of the water and make it hard for different organisms to live in. Pollutants are also bad for us. Like sometimes we have to think about things like plastic that can dissolve in our drinking water if we drink out of plastic bottles, things that can affect our health. Two ways that water quality is monitored is if it's a natural body of water, the Environmental Protection Agency monitors it. They monitor all the water that comes out of your tap. So when you turn your faucet on, it's monitored by the EPA to make sure that it's okay. And if it comes in a bottle, it's monitored by the Food and Drug Administration. There's actually more standards surrounding your tap water than your bottled water, even though we would all rather drink bottled water, which has lots of plastic pieces in it that may not be good for us, right? So you might want to think of that. So again, if you guys could all check that you're muted, I can hear some background noise. Hover over your picture with your cursor and you'll see how to mute yourself. So at home, your water that comes out of the faucet can have minerals in it like calcium and magnesium. If you ever see like people with sprinklers in certain areas, like if you go to Venice, then a lot of the sidewalks and curbs are like a rusty red color. That's because their water has a lot of iron in it, and iron is a rusty color. So there can be zinc, there can be copper, and some of these things are just naturally in the water, but some of them come from other places, like for example, your pipes, right? Like look at this picture. your pipes are usually made out of copper, and water runs through them, and copper gets dissolved in the water. So you drink a little bit of copper, which isn't that bad. Eventually, so much of the copper dissolves in the water that you get holes in the pipe. And since our pipe, we don't have basements, all of our pipes are in the cement floor, then you actually can have a pipe break, and then you have to chisel out the cement and fix the pipe and put in new tiles, which is kind of a pain. So all the water that you drink, if you live in Port Charlotte or Punta Gorda, comes from the Peace River, unless you have a well. And it goes to a treatment plant where it gets treated with chlorine, which is what is in your pool. It's like bleach, and it kills all the germs. It pretty much kills anything that can make you sick. And then all the other things, like if you look at the Peace River, you wouldn't think of drinking it, right? So all the solid things that are in there are allowed to settle to the bottom, and all the things that can make you sick are killed with chlorine, and then you drink it. So crew, did you have a question? If you do have a question, crew, you have to unmute yourself. I can do it. Did you have a question? No? Okay, I thought you raised your hand or raised your hand. So water quality is really important.
I'm seeing what.
Okay, water quality is really important for what we drink, for what we swim and boat in, for food, right? For fish that live in the water, and if we eat the fish, we don't want the fish to have pollutants in them that can make us sick either. So our health is really important, is really dependent on water quality. This shows you a healthy pond and a pond with too much algae. So if we were at school, we could do a lab with water quality, which I'll find a way for you to do it on a computer. But there's a lot of different things that go into water quality, like where a body of water is located can determine how the water is. For example, if you look at this pond in the picture, it's probably surrounded by a farm. So the farmer fertilizes his fields, it rains, and then the nutrients run into the water. And you can see there's a lot of algae in there, right? Because the algae loves the fertilizer. And so too much algae, you wouldn't think is bad, but it actually blocks out the sunlight. And without sunlight, then there's not any plants. And without plants, there's no oxygen, because when plants essentially breathe, they give off oxygen, and the fish need that. So it ends up killing the pond. So location is important, right? Golf courses would probably have ponds that have a lot of nutrients in them. And like where I live on a canal, and we all have septic tanks. You know, when you flush the toilet, it goes into a tank. And we have a brand new tank, and most people don't. So there's little holes in the tanks, and all that sewage goes into the canal, which ends up in the ocean, right? And sometimes you see beaches close, and you know that's probably a lot from people's septic tanks. So so water quality is really dependent on where things are located. So how do people measure water quality? There's a lot of different measures of water quality. I'll show you. Some of them are temperature, which is, you know, a measure of how hot or cold something is. Turbidity is how clear it is. And dissolved oxygen, there's oxygen dissolved in the water, and that's what fish and organisms that live in the water breathe. So they really need the dissolved oxygen. If there's not a lot of oxygen, then there can't be a lot of fish. pH is a measure of how acidic something is. That's another important thing. So this is how the clarity or the turbidity is measured. They use this thing called the Secchi disc, and it's got black and white quadrants or quarters, and basically you drop it in the water until you can't see it anymore. And the deeper you can drop it, the clearer the water is, right? If it only goes down a few inches and you can't see it, then it's probably pretty murky, muddy water. Temperature is important. Temperature is really important because the higher the water temperature is, the lower the dissolved oxygen is. So in the summer, in the ocean, when the water gets really warm, right, it gets up to like 85 degrees, then there's a lot less oxygen for the fish to breathe. So the fish tend to be more active at night when the water temperature is a little lower, the early morning, at the end of the day. But during the middle of the day, during the hottest part, when the water is the hottest, they'll just kind of lay low under the mangroves or something, because it's hard for them to breathe. So temperature is really important. pH is important. The pH scale goes from 0 to 14, and 7 is neutral, and that's where we want water to be. And generally, it can be a little higher or lower depending on what the rocks around there, like the bedrock is. And sometimes we can have it be a little too acidic because of the rain, but most fish and most life wants the pH to be around 7, right in the middle, right? These are different pHs of materials. Like if you look at acid in your stomach is really low, acidic, and then pure water is neutral, and then things like oven cleaner that you would clean out your oven with is really alkaline. Anything really hot.
Whoever said who's freezing, we're in Florida.
Okay, guys, unmute.
I'm on mute.
Or mute, sorry.
You say unmute?
Yeah, he said unmute.
You guys are muting yourselves, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
I think I lost my internet for a second, but it's back on. Did it disappear and then come back on or something? Or
yes.
okay.
Yeah.
So sorry about that. I'll get back to my shared screen if you guys can all.
Mr. Hendricks, I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
How does algae form again?
It's a plant. It's like a plant-like thing. It's just living cells. So they're always in the water, even if you can't really see them. But the more nutrients, the more pollutants in the water, the more algae you have. Like when you fertilize your grass, it's like washes into the water, like fertilizing algae in the water. So
Okay.
can you guys all mute yourselves, please?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Hendrick.
Okay, why don't we just mute ourselves, and then if you have a question, you can raise your hand. So Juliet, you have a question?
Can you repeat what you said before you lost connection, because my it started it froze.
Okay, yeah, because when I lost it broke. So let me look it back where I was, okay? So I can remember. I was talking about water quality. So let me move this out of the way. You guys can see the PowerPoint. Okay, what we were talking about was we were talking about dissolved oxygen. That dissolved oxygen is actually we were talking about pH. We were just saying that in the middle is 7. That's what bodies of water need to be for fish to live in there, for everything to live in there. And if it's too low, it's very acidic, and if it's too high, we call it alkaline. Neither one can like burn your skin when you get to like 0 or 14. Even like if you think of pH of 3, where it says orange juice, if you guys have ever eaten a lot of pineapples and then your tongue feels like it got burnt a little bit, it's because of the citric acid in the pineapple. Actually burns your tongue a little bit. So does that answer your question, Juliet? Yes? Okay. So we're talking about dissolved oxygen. We said that all the living things, like animals, need to breathe the oxygen from the water. And so things like bass or redfish, they're all, every time they breathe in their gills, they're extracting the oxygen from the water. So they need that in order to survive. Without it, they can't survive. So some things that are in the water that could be a pollutant if there's too much are things like nitrates and phosphates. These So you see me doing this, it's because there's a bee flying around my head. So nitrates and phosphates come from fertilizers and septic tanks, and too much of them is not just like fertilizer for your lawn, it's fertilizer for algae. So too much of them will make a lot of algae grow, which blocks out the light in the pond, which kills the plants, which ends up killing fish and stuff like that. So that's bad. We don't want that to happen. So there you go. There you have it. If you guys have any questions, let me stop sharing this here. If you have any questions, now would be a good time to ask your questions. So I'm looking for raised hands. Juliet, do you still have a question or no?
No.
Okay, so after you do your question, if you click on the raised hand, you can lower your hand. Okay, Alex, you have a question?
Oh, we didn't see half of it because
Can you? I can barely hear you.
we didn't see half of it because it was like glitched.
Oh yeah. Well, then you'll have to use the. You have to go back on the. You'll have to go back in the PowerPoint and see it.
Okay.
Yeah, in the middle, I seem to have lost my internet connection, so that's what happened. So, you guys, if you go to, let's see, it's okay how you're raising your hand now, but if you go to participants and you find your name, you can raise your hand and it'll be a blue thing. Juliet, can you unmute yourself?
Yeah.
Can you tell everybody how you found the blue raised hand? You know how you raised your hand when you had a question?
Mhm. You go on. Wait, what?
When you had a question earlier, you had the little blue raised hand next to your name. How did you do that? You want to tell your classmates or?
Well, I went on where it says you go where it says it's more. You go and it says raise your hand.
Okay, so there you go. See if you can find it. If not, it's okay to just raise your real hand and not your virtual hand. Peyton, you have a question.
It's right here. And it says right here.
What's your
Okay,
question?
so when you have the pineapple
Yeah,
and then it burns your tongue,
yeah.
how come it doesn't really do that with other fruits?
Well, because pineapples have more citric acid, so it's a little bit of a lower pH, and citric acid is also in oranges and any kind of citrus, but pineapples have a lot of it. I know I like pineapples, so you eat so much.
I love pineapples.
I have one growing in my backyard. Okay, anybody else have a question? Jackson, are you propping your head up so you don't fall asleep, or do you have a question?
No, I don't have a question.
Okay. Jack, you have a question. Go.
Yes. Is algae edible?
Actually, when you eat sushi, right, there's algae that's rolled up in there, and oftentimes, and you guys eat the dried algae chips. It's used in ice cream and soup to make it thicker, and it's not all edible, but it would be if we ever ran out of food in the world, it would be a pretty abundant food source, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, because you can just strain it out of the ocean and then eat it. It's getting really bright out here, so is that you, Sierra, with your hand up and someone's
Yeah.
name on there?
Yeah.
Okay, what can I do for you?
Is there different types of algae?
Yeah, there's all different kinds of algae. In 7th grade, you'll learn about all the different kinds of algae.
Okay. Hi, Kelsey.
It's a really big group. So, anybody else have a question? No? Okay. No questions? Then look at this. I'm going to show you this. By the way, I see like Haley, Kingston, you guys who don't have your pictures on there, you should be able to hover over where your name is, and there's a kind of a rectangle with nothing, and you should be able to show the video then, or you can go on the right side where your name is and click more, or click the little video camera. So Here. Let's see if I can do this. I don't know if I can. But you should be able to do it to turn on your video. Okay, so I want to show you one more thing before we're done. And this is our slideshow. Keep out of there. Hang on a second. Okay, lesson plans. Putting them on here. So this was your lesson plan from today. This is what we'll do on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We'll get together like this. And if you look down here, gotta move this out of the way. If you look right here, activity 2, it says to write a 1/2 page minimum paragraph describing 3 ways that you use water resources and why they're important to you. So you could share that on Google Docs. Really important thing, whenever you share something with me, now I have a million emails because everybody's sharing their work. And like if Juliet shares something with me or Jack, I see it comes from your email, right? I can see your name. But when I open the document, if you don't include your name in the name of the document, then I don't always know whose it is. And I might start doing something else. So if you could just follow those directions I gave you before and just write your name like Jack, you can write for this, coffee, water paragraph, right? And then I'll know it's yours and I'll know what it is. And that makes it easier for me. So don't write like science thingy or something like that because I don't know what that is. So does anybody have any questions about this paragraph that you're doing? You could raise your hand. Oh, Peyton's iPad.
Okay. So
Yeah, ma'am.
for the paragraph thing, you said it was 3 paragraphs.
No, I just said write a 1/2 page minimum paragraph describing 3 ways that you use water resources. Like one of the things I've been doing is kayaking. You know, that's a way that I've been using water resources because there's really nothing else to do, right? And
Okay.
yep. Anybody else have a question? No? Okay, tomorrow there'll be a short video. We're not going to meet on Fridays, but there will be a short video introducing what you have to do, and all it really is chapter 15 assessment. It'll be like a working class, okay? Sound good?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
Yes.
guys.
I see a dog. Why is there a dog?
Yes.
Oh wait, Juliet, do you have a question?
You're mute.
Does Juliet have a question?
Not anymore.
Camera shot.
Okay. So class is done, you guys. I hope you had a good time. It was nice to see you. I miss you all. Stay healthy, right? Make sure you wash your hands and stay away from people and except for your family.
6 feet distances.
Okay.
6.
We'll see you Tuesday.
Oh my gosh.
Why do you have a dog?